UFC 316, Dvalishvili versus O'Malley. We have some absolute heat this weekend as the UFC heads to Newark, New Jersey. Let's get right into these fights. This is the first card of several pretty incredible pay-per-views we have lined up. Let's get right into it. First is MarQuel Mederos taking on Choinski. Choinski is making his UFC debut here. Big step up in competition. Going through his Tapology page, it's a lot of, 500 guys barely above 500. And he's really been only fighting in the regional scene up to this point. But he looks like he's ready for the step up and challenge. He's a former All-American wrestler, although that's seemingly counting for less and less each day. But the grappling looks like it's definitely high level. And the striking, he definitely has some pop on his punches. Mederos is 2-0 in the UFC. Recently struggled with Austin Hubbard's grappling, which could definitely open the door for Choinski to take advantage of some of that takedown defense. But he looks a lot more comfortable on the feet. And he's just a really athletic guy. I think he's going to be a tough guy to, even if Choinski takes Mederos down, I think he's going to be a hard guy to keep down. And on the feet, I think he's going to look levels above Choinski. So Mederos by this decision is going to be the first pick here. Next up is Quillan Salkilld taking on Yanal Ashmouz. And Salkilld had a massive UFC debut versus Salkilld, and he got a round 1 KO in 20 seconds. Really didn't get to see anything out of Salkilld, and was honestly hoping to see more out of Quillan Salkilld. I want to see how he looks in there. And so we really have to refer to his Dana White Contender Series fight, which did go a full 15 minutes, to really look at the kind of guy Salkilld is. We know he has power, but he looks like he has a pretty well-rounded game as well. His power is definitely going to be his best attribute. And he does look like he fades late into fights, which is going to be something to look out for and something that Ashmouz could take advantage of. Ashmouz has good wrestling and cardio to potentially capitalize late in the fight if Salkilld starts fading. And Ashmouz looked good versus Trevor Peek. The Chris Duggan fight was his sole UFC loss before that, but he broke his hand early and pretty much got dominated the whole fight. Even if he didn't break his hand, he definitely could have still lost that one. Tough to say. The biggest thing here is going to be the size for Ashmouz, who's giving up several inches and in height and reach. Salkild's already a big body for the lightweight division, so Ashmouz has a lot he's going up against here. I think Salkilld is going to win this one by decision. He's going to land the more meaningful shots. Next up is Jeka Saragih taking on Juseng Yu. Juseng Yu is a massive favorite here, one of several on this card. His best weapon is definitely a straight right hand that is pretty devastating when he lands it. He's got a couple KOs by way of a counter right hand that he really just constantly has cocked back. Jeka Saragih is like a Muay Thai guy, I'm pretty sure. So the striking skill is there, but the guy has virtually no wrestling as well, and has losses to Weston Wilson and Salkilld. The guy just doesn't really belong in the UFC, I don't think. And I think Juseng Yu is going to win this one by KO, either by way of ground and pound, he's going to take him down, or I think that right hand could definitely catch Saragih, sit him down, and then just find a finish with the ground and pound. Juseng Yu definitely looking like a very interesting South Korean prospect. Next up is Ariane de Silva taking on Wang Cong. Wang Kong's another heavy favorite on this card. Despite Ariane missing weight by 6 pounds, it was pretty insane, but I don't think it really matters a whole lot here. I think Wang Cong is kind of just on this rocket ship right now to a title fight. She had that setback fight versus Gabrielle Fernandez, and she didn't look great in that fight. Obviously ended up getting submitted, but I don't think we're going to see her lose again for a long time, potentially until she fights for the belt. I really think she's that level of talent. She's got rare power for the division that we just really don't see in women's MMA often, and I think she's well-rounded besides that. She had that bad fight, but I think she worked on her game a bit. And if you struggle taking her down, she's just going to dominate you on the feet. I think it's safe to say about pretty much anyone she faces minus the elite of the division. So Cong by decision is the pick there. Next up is Khaos Williams taking on Andreas Gustafsson. This definitely has the potential for fight of the night here. Gustafsson won his Dana White Contender Series fight by KO, and I like his game a lot. He's got really good clinch work. He pretty much just bullied his opponent up against the cage the entire fight, smothered him, and landed a lot of clean strikes up in close, and showed that he has the power to really hurt guys from that close, which I think is really rare and speaks to his level of clinch striking. For Chaos Williams, the key is definitely going to be stay off the cage, because that's where Andreas Gustafsson wants to be. If they're in open space, Chaos has pretty much unrivaled power at the welterweight division, and Gustafsson isn't exactly a hard target, I'd say. He kind of stands pretty straight up. So I definitely think Chaos can catch him coming in. Gustafsson kind of has a habit of bum rushing in to get guys up against the cage, at least from what I saw of him. So I definitely think he can get caught here by Chaos, and Chaos is going to win this one by KO. It's just going to be a matter of him staying off the cage, because if he does let Gustafsson bully him, he definitely could get put out himself. Next up is Serghei Spivac taking on Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Cortes-Acosta has won 4 in a row, including 2 KOs. Most recently, KO win over Ryan Spann back in March. Definitely gave Spann a rude awakening to the heavyweight division. I kind of like Cortes-Acosta's game. He definitely needed to get a finish in his last fight, because he had some boring fights up until that point. Obviously, the Rubelas to Spain fight, which he just took him down the entire fight and laid on him. But I do think Cortes-Acosta has the athleticism and the power to hurt people on the feet, even true heavyweights like Spivac. Spivac is coming in heavier than he usually does. He's weighed in at 251 this morning. But I think Cortes is still just the naturally bigger guy, stronger guy, and going to be a difficult guy to take down. And we've seen it before. When Spivac struggles to take people down, he kind of is lost in there. Whereas if he does get the takedown, he definitely can do a lot of work. But, I mean, you just got to look at the Almeida fight, a fight that I did pick Spivac in. And when it was on the feet, Almeida completely distanced himself and pretty much dominated all the striking exchanges. I think Cortes-Acosta is the much better striker here, and he's just going to stuff a couple takedowns, and I think he's going to trust his power a bit more, sit on his shots, because I think he's realizing that getting KOs just does a lot more for your career than winning close decisions. Cortes-Acosta by KO is the pick here. I think he's going to find the chin of Spivac. Next up is Azamat Murzakanov taking on Brendson Ribeiro. And Murzakanov is definitely the dark horse of the light heavyweight division. Really, it's been inactivity that has kind of stunted his career up until this point. He's 36 and only has 4 UFC fight in pretty much as many years. 3 of those 4 wins are KOs, so he is finding finishes and doing it in impressive fashion. Obviously, he's got some of the best striking in the division. Twice he is tired out in his fights, like first versus like Tafon Nchukwi and then Alonzo Menefield lately. And he definitely looks like he fades kind of in the latter part of the second round of fights, early in the third. But he's just a little bit sharper in those moments, usually, than his opponents, like Menefield, like Tafon Nchukwi, who kind of get sloppy, and he is so accurate, and he really makes guys pay for it. So twice commentators have, started taking, Murzakanov looking so tired, and then literally 10 seconds after, he finds a brutal KO. So I like his game a lot. Super slick boxing, and he's really bounces in and out of range really well, which is huge because he is a smaller guy, and he's facing a much taller guy in Brendson Ribeiro here. He's going to have something like an 8 or 9 inch reach advantage, I want to say. Ribeiro definitely is a KO threat. Most guys in the light heavyweight division are, but I think Murzakanov is just going to be too quick in closing the distance, and up close is where he's really going to thrive because he's just so accurate. He finds guys' chins, and I don't even think it's the power as much as just the placement of his punches. He switches up the tempo really well and the timing of his shots, so he catches guys off guard. which is huge because he's really kind of spamming overhands and doesn't really switch up his punches a whole lot, but when he does, he lands clean. So Murzakanov by KO is the pick there. Next up is Bruno Silva taking on Joshua Van. And Van is probably the most active fighter on the roster right now, perhaps rivaled only by Kevin Holland, who fights later on here. This is his 7th fight in 2 years, which is pretty incredible. He's only 23 years old, so he definitely has youth on his side in that way, where he's just got a crazy motor. And he's been fighting some names too, like Ray Saruya, Cody Durden, Edgar Chairez. He has wins all over those guys. He's got great wrestling, and his boxing is definitely his best attribute. He's got really fast hands. And I'm not going to lie, I'm surprised the odds were as wide as they are now. I mean, I've seen Van at like a 6-7-1 favorite, especially considering Silva has had a lot of good moments himself, some big wins, and a ton of experience. That being said, I think the speed of Van is just going to give Silva fits. Van is just going to be able to land multiple shots really before I think Silva can get a whole lot of offense off. We saw it in the Manel Kopp fight. Silva really had no answer for Kopp, and Manel pretty much threw caution to the wind because he knew that he was pretty much untouchable. So Van by decision is going to be the pick here. I think he's just going to completely win the output battle between these two. Next up was Vicente Luque taking on Kevin Holland in the welterweight division where Holland belongs. Luque is only 33 years old, but I just have gotten kind of bad vibes from him lately. He is coming off of a submission win over Temba Garimbo, but before that, he was 1-3, including KO losses to Jeff Neal and Joaquin Buckley. Not bad competition by any means, but it just feels like he's kind of floundering right now. It doesn't really, not in the title shot, even in that range whatsoever. And really, what does a Kevin Holland win do for his career? I don't know. He's taking on Kevin Holland, though, who's also kind of in a similar spot, 2-3 in his last 5, and is coming off of a win as well over Gunnar Nelson. In my opinion, I think Holland has just looked a lot better recently than Luque, especially on the feet, where Luque, we've seen him get dropped a couple times in recent fights, and he's definitely going to have a submission threat, but I don't think he's really going to be able to get a hold of Holland and dominate the grappling. So for that reason, we're going with Holland by decision, but definitely I don't know if I would call Holland a 3-1 favorite, which is where I've seen him. So perhaps some value on the side of Luque. I just think Holland is a bit better right now. Next up is Mario Bautista taking on Patchy Mix. And welcome to the UFC, Patchy Mix. He's stepping in for Chito Vera on 3 weeks' notice, who had to pull out due to injury. And obviously, Patchy Mix is possibly the biggest non-UFC name in the world right now, save for maybe Francis Ngannou. Well, obviously excluding Francis Ngannou, but I can't really think of another talent in another promotion who's as big of a name as Patchy Mix. Maybe Paul Hughes could get there soon. That guy's looking unbelievable. But he held the belt in Bellator, defended it twice. Definitely had a razor close win versus Magomedov, I believe. A lot of people felt that Magomedov got robbed in that fight. But that being said, Patchy Mix is definitely the real deal. They just don't hand out belts in other promotions. And I was skeptical of Patchy Mix given the level of competition just being a bit lower in these other promotions than the UFC, until I saw him live versus Sergio Pettis, a fight that he completely dominated. Obviously, Sergio Pettis I don't think is on the level of a guy like Mario Bautista, but Patchy is the absolute real deal. He's got great size for the division. Striking isn't unbelievable, but he's pretty unpredictable. He throws these knees up the middle that can be pretty devastating. And I also don't think Mario Bautista is that good of a striker. But this is definitely going to be a tough UFC debut. Mario Bautista is a really tough dude, physically imposing. I mean, I forced myself to rewatch that Jose Aldo fight, and it was excruciating to watch. but you have to give Bautista some credit for just kind of imposing his will on Aldo physically, stuffing him up against the cage. Like, obviously Bautista, that was insane of him to, waste a rare Aldo matchup and take that approach when he was looking good enough in the striking exchanges. I think it was definitely just a bad career decision, and he got a lot of flack for it, and he was kind of strictly fighting for the win. But you have to give him some credit. Like, Aldo, you got to get off the cage, and I definitely think that that's something he's going to look to do in this Patchy mixed fight. He's going to look to stuff Patchy up against the cage. I just don't think Patchy is going to allow that to happen. His grappling is really strong, and when he gets on top of guys, they just have a hard time getting up. He's got really heavy top pressure. I heard in interviews guys like Aljamain Sterling saying, like, yeah, this guy is an absolute problem on the ground, and you can see it in the several submission wins he has over the years. So it definitely feels like Patchy Mix's weakness is going to be a really strong striker with good wrestling defense, but Bautista is really not that great of a striker. He's got a pretty simple game. It's a lot of just ones and twos and looking for leg kicks, but he doesn't have crazy power. I don't think he's going to absolutely dominate the striking, and he might not even be better on the feet. So we're taking Patchy Mix to win this one by decision. I think it's going to be a dogfight, but I think Mix has that championship experience, and is just going to win this one on the cards. Next up is Kelvin Gastelum versus Joe Pyfer. And I just watched the face-offs between these two guys, and Gastelum looked tiny compared to Joe Pyfer. Obviously, he's used to being the smaller guy in every matchup. But Pyfer is a big middleweight. He's a guy who you honestly worry about making 185 each time, although he did look good on the scales today. But the size difference is pretty stark. Gastelum's recent opponents are guys like D-Rod, Sean Brady, guys who are pretty much similar or the same size to Kelvin Gastelum, not someone who's 3-4 inches taller like Joe Pyfer is. So the size is going to be an issue for Kelvin Gastelum, and I don't know if he's going to really have the power and the cardio to stay away from Pyfer and look to land the bigger shots later on in the fight. Really, it's going to come down to, can you keep Pyfer off of you? And I just don't see Gastelum having the tools to do that. He's not as young as he once was. I don't think his mobility is as good. He's going to be an easier target. And Pyfer just has crazy power. Gastelum, we've never seen him get KO'd, and I definitely think he could frustrate Pyfer. Like, that Jack Hermansson loss is definitely still in my mind, because he really did get embarrassed in that fight. But, Hermansson's a solid fighter, and he's a lot bigger than Kelvin Gastelum. So we're going to take Pyfer to win this one by KO. I think he's going to give Gastelum his first KO loss ever. Just the years are coming for Gastelum. He's up there in age. He's been in the wars. I just think, that chin is going to crack sooner or later, especially when you're facing, a guy with a stronger punch than Ngannou, per Dana White. So Pyfer by KO is the pick there. And our co-main event is Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison for the women's bantamweight belt. First things first, Kayla did make the 135-pound limit, which some are probably saying is going to be the hardest part of this whole week for her. And that's not even to say that she's just going to roll through Juliana Pena, but it's honestly a miracle that she was able to suck down to 135, considering I don't think she ever had fought below 145 or maybe even like 155 when she was in the PFL. And this is one of the most one-sided title fights in terms of odds that we've seen in recent years. Kayla is the minus 800 favorite here. And I think a lot of that is just her skill set. She's kind of the antithesis to Juliana Pena because she's the better grappler. She's the stronger of the two women. And Pena's going to want nothing to do with Kayla Harrison on the ground, I think. And really, I think to beat Kayla Harrison, you got to keep it on the feet. And you got to land heavy strikes and really tire her out. And I just don't know if Juliana Pena is the person for the job. She's going to need to make it a dogfight like she did in the first Amanda Nunes fight. So we know that she has that in her. She's super tough, and she's going to sell out. Like, she's not going to quit on herself. And I definitely think she's going to frustrate Kayla at times here. But it's going to get to the time in the fight where Kayla Harrison's going to take her down. And really the biggest thing for Kayla has been the availability of elbows on the ground, which has just completely opened up her game and is definitely going to be the strongest part of her game here, because I think she's just going to cut Juliana Pena up, and it's just going to it could be definitely a bloodbath here, and we could get a doctor stoppage here due to cut. So Kayla Harrison by KO is going to be the pick here. That one should be a fun fight, though. We definitely know that Pena has it in her to have a crazy upset. Would have loved to see Pennington versus Kayla Harrison, though. I think that would have been a more interesting matchup. But finally, we have our main event. It's Merab Dvalishvili taking on Sean O'Malley. And first things first, the initial fight between these two was a lot closer on second watch than I think a lot of people gave it credit for. And I'm starting to sense a common theme with Merab here. Because not just in this fight, but I also think that Umar fight was a lot closer than people want to give Umar credit for. Like, these fights, Merab is like narrowly winning 3 rounds in each of these fights. Obviously, he won this past one 4-1 on, I think, all the judges' scorecards. I scored round 1 and round 5 for Sean O'Malley. I think Merab's, honestly, his best trait is obviously his cardio, but that doesn't just allow him to just shoot takedowns for 25 minutes and just drown guys that way. But I also think the optics are a huge part here, because he just looks so much more fresh than his opponents, and I think that just has judges thinking, and maybe sometimes not really considering the work that his opponents are doing. I mean, I definitely thought Sean won the first round in the first fight, and the body shots were really the key there. And I think those kind of flew under the radar because people thought they weren't doing much. But then you see in the 5th round, he starts landing a couple of those teep kicks, and you realize, he has been spending this entire fight softening up Merab, and those are really adding up, and those are probably some of the most damaging strikes in the fight, rather than Merab landing a takedown and kneeing his thighs or, whatever he was doing. So definitely felt like Merab won the first fight, but a lot closer than people think. I don't think Sean O'Malley needs to reinvent the wheel, take a completely new approach here. I think he had a good strategy going into the first fight. He just needs to stuff a couple more takedowns, and he came really close on some big shots in the first fight that I think could have changed things a lot. But obviously Merab is the toughest puzzle to solve in the bantamweight division right now. He's the champ for a reason. He just has ungodly cardio. And if he gets the confidence going early and we just see him ragdolling O'Malley, I mean, it's going to be a long 25 minutes for Sean. I just think the body work of Sean O'Malley is really going to shine through in this fight. Merab has a really good poker face, but those shots hurt him a lot more than he was letting on in the first fight. And I think there were a lot of close calls there as well. Those teep kicks, I'd like to see O'Malley get those working earlier in this fight, because those proved to be super effective. But man, this is going to be an absolutely insane fight. And we're going with Sean O'Malley to win by decision here, which is going to be probably a pretty unique pick. I think a lot of people are thinking KO or bust. But again, that first fight was a lot closer than people want to give it credit for, especially with the UFC scoring format. It's round by round. And I think O'Malley can definitely win 3 rounds here, as long as he just accumulates enough damage to offset the inevitable takedown. Like, he's going to get taken down probably every single round, or at least 4 of the 5 rounds. It's going to be up to him to just really make a statement in the minutes before he gets taken down, land a lot of damage. I think he is the guy to do it. So O'Malley by decision is going to be the pick in that fight. Thank you for watching. A lot of great cards to come, and we'll see you on the next one.